Welcome to Backstage 421, the musicians only podcast, with your host, author, and music lover, Charles Campbell. Charles will have an awesome array of guests from many genres of music, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. By the way, Ray Mattis is the composer of this awesome intro music.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Backstage 421, the podcast. And I have a very special guest today. She is the very first official guest on Backstage 421, the musicians only podcast. She is a vocalist, a keyboard player, and a songwriter for an awesome New Zealand group called French for Rabbits. And welcome, Brooke Singer. Welcome to the podcast.
Kia ora, thank you so much for having me. I'm very honoured to be your first guest.
Well, I'm honored to have you. Now, before we even get started, I thought the name French for Rabbits was a very unique name. Can you tell me how you came up with that name? What's the origin of French for Rabbits? Where did that name come from?
Well, it's got kind of murky background. Not murky as in disconcerting. More, I can't quite remember how it came about, except that I didn't used to sing, and I used it as like a password on some music to share with a couple of people that I knew, because I was really shy about it. So I just sent it to them with this password. And then one of them, I think, maybe shared it with someone else, and then it sort of just stuck. So
It stuck.
But, you know, when you make a password, you don't really normally think too hard about what it means. So
Right.
it wasn't like a band name where I was like, oh, what am I going to call the band? It was more like, these are some words that will suffice as a password.
Well, they stick out and they make you remember for sure.
They
Because
do, yeah. And it's sort of taken on a life of its own in a way. Like, I think I imagine it as being like, I like that it's a little bit vague, or it could be interpreted in different ways. So it could be like a Beatrix Potter book
right,
where
yeah.
Peter learns how to read French, and it's a little book called French for Rabbits. Or it might just be a very strange way of saying lapin, which is the French word for rabbits, you know. So it's got a nice mystery to it in its way.
It does have a nice mystery because it really intrigued me. So I was like, well, where did that name come from? That's an interesting name. And I'm an author. So
Okay.
when you said maybe there's a book called French for Rabbits, I mean, yeah, that could be a good book title. So that's awesome. That is amazing. So before we get into like the songwriting questions and the French for Rabbit stuff, tell me a little bit about your musical background. What drew you to music? Who were some of your influences? Because I find your songwriting ability really, really superior. When I sit down and break down the lyrics of some of these songs, they're amazing. So I'd like to know some of your influences and who influenced you coming up as an artist.
Oh, wow. I guess I started playing the piano when I was quite small. We had one in the house, and it's quite a cool piano. It's this old wooden one, and it's still at my dad's house. And if you had the lid closed, the knots in the wood sort of looked like a witch's face, which I found quite.
Oh,
And so I would always have the lid up and some music or something sitting on it, so I didn't have to see the witch's face. But I used to love playing the piano, and I wrote my first song when I was like 5 about my cat Monty, who died, and it was a very sad, it was the first big sad moment for me in my life, I guess. So I wrote this song about my cat Monty, which only had 2 lines, one which repeated 3 times. So it was a very simple song. But anyway, we had a big record collection growing up. So it was like Pat Benatar and ZZ Top. My dad's a big ZZ Top fan. The Beach Boys. I think
sounds like my childhood. I grew up in the 80s.
Okay, yeah. So I had lots. I loved Pat Benatar, and I loved I loved the Beach Boys, and I always loved harmonies ever since then. So, but I've always been drawn to female songwriters and vocalists. So I think that's sort of, even now, if I look at my collection of what I listen to the most, it's predominantly women artists. I don't know why that is, but I also love, like, in high school I discovered The Cure, and I love The Cure.
Oh yeah.
And I also discovered the Kinks, and I love them. But predominantly, I loved mostly, like, at the moment I love Madison Cunningham.
Okay.
Just a great lyricist. Leonard Cohen, good lyricists I like, and good melody writers.
That's awesome, because I'm drawn to lyrics. That's what I like to hear. And I wrote a note here for myself. I said the lyrics drive the car, not the hook. Um, and that's what I like about your music. I've gone back and I went to iTunes, and I'm an old guy, so I actually downloaded the stuff. I didn't stream it on Spotify, so I bought the music, and I'm listening to it, and I'm thinking these freaking lyrics are amazing. And one song, and I jump all over the place, so bear with me. But one song that really stuck out with me out of what I've listened to so far, and it's a song I think Mark co-wrote with you. It's called "The Outsider." I love that song, and I love the video that goes with it. And the lyrics, like I took a couple of notes for that song. Like some of the lyrics that struck me, like right over my head. Say what they want, not what I feel. That really hit me right here. Um, I'd like to know, specifically for that song, how did you come up with that concept, and what came into creating such a great lyric driven song? And for the folks out there who haven't heard it, go find "The Outsider" by French for Rabbits. It is a great song. It's at the top of my list of recent songs that I've put in the rotation. But the lyrics really grabbed me. So I'll be quiet and let you respond to that.
Oh, I mean, I'm really glad you like that one. It's one of my favorites, and it was really fun to write. So I recently started exploring co-writing with other people, and the day we wrote that song was the first time I met Mark and Brooke, who was another Brooke from Florida. But yeah, I just arrived in LA, and so I was sort of felt like a country girl who'd gone to the big city, and
Oh,
I just,
believe me, I'm from the deep South in the United States, and I've been to LA a couple of times to see gin shows, and I feel the same way. I'm a fish out of water, but continue.
yeah, totally. So, like, I guess I was really pushing myself out of my introverted kind of space that I'm normally in. And so, I was just talking about how I was finding it coming to LA and trying to be social and fit in, I guess. And we just sort of were talking about our experiences going to parties as an introvert, and you're the one in the corner patting the cat, that
Right.
kind of thing. Um, so I guess it is just a song about being. It's called The Outsider, so it
Yeah.
really it explores that feeling, what it is to be that person, and to be an introvert in a extroverted world.
Extroverted world, yeah. Well, Mark sent me his playlist last year. He was on my other podcast. Um, and I got to that song, and I listened to it, and then I listened to it again, then I listened to it again, and I was like, "Wow, this is amazing." So it really struck a chord with me. Not that I'm an introvert necessarily, but just the message in the song, really, it really got to me. So it's one that stuck with me and is going to continue to stick with me. So great job, great
Oh, thank
job. You guys were amazing together for sure. Um, and there are several songs that really stuck out when I sat down and listened to them. I'd like to know, I'm a writer, a fiction writer, and I ask this of authors and I ask this of songwriters. What is your process? You're a lyricist, so what is your process to get into that mindset to write a song? Uh, is it something you feel, or does music come first and then lyrics? I'm interested in your process on how you develop um, lyrics
Yeah,
specifically.
I mean, I've been writing songs for a long time now, and it's never. I don't stick to one process because I feel like when I write in a different way, it brings out something new. So I like to to push myself outside of my comfort zone as a writer. Traditionally, though, I think I tend to write lyrics, and I write all together. So I sit at the piano, I'll play around and find some chords and write lyrics kind of together. But sometimes, for example, if I'm co-writing with someone else, I think of it more like a jigsaw or a crossword puzzle, where you kind of get this initial spark of an idea and it's really exciting. And then you follow your nose a bit, but also you're trying to find how all these different parts fit together
Right.
in the most like vivid way. And sometimes it takes a while to kind of get a piece that's in the far left corner and one in the far right corner and get them in the right places. So yeah, I
To
think of it.
connect the dots.
Yeah, sometimes it's like a puzzle or like some kind of mystery you're trying to solve, which I enjoy. So there are different ways, because some songs just come from the heart or from some wherever place the muse hits you from, and you just write a song. And other times it's more of a you're trying to best explain a feeling that you have, which the reason I love songwriting as opposed to just writing is, for me, I think the melodies and instruments and stuff, they help explain something that I find difficult to express with just words alone. So
Right.
that's why I like to write things in one go, because I feel like the rhythm and everything helps tell that story. Yeah.
Well, you're very good at it. So, the thing I always like to know is that the chicken or the eggs, the music or the lyrics, and I guess it just depends, right? Like if you're laying down music, maybe you think of something, oh, okay, and match lyrics to whatever music you produced, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so yeah, I think you're amazing. The lyrics are deep, and I like lyric. Now, I do like strong hooks, and I do like bouncy music. So don't get me wrong, but I'm drawn to, like you, female artists for some reason. I've been that way since I've been a kid. Now I do. I won't say that I exclusively listen to females, but probably 90% of my playlist is female. Um, and I am quite fond of a particular Kiwi. You can see her behind me, so I
Oh,
do.
yeah.
I do. I am quite fond of Jen. So, but yeah, I listen to all kinds of female artists. But love lyrics, and I want to dig into lyrics all the time.
Mm.
And there was another song that you had called "Goat," and I'm sorry if I'm hammering lyrics a lot, but I just love these.
Oh, I love
Um,
lyrics. I talk about them
I do
all day.
too. So, "Goat," the lyric, and I put a note here: lyrically excellent. I'll be the first to say I'm sorry, even when it's not my fault. And I put strong opening. That Can you talk about that song a little bit? What went into making that? I'm always interested in these awesome, lyrics and stories behind these things.
Yeah, I mean, that one actually is one of the few songs, one of those magical ones that just came, and I wrote it in 20 minutes, probably.
Wow,
So um, that one's just very honest. Yeah.
it felt
Some,
that
some,
way.
yeah, some songs, you're trying to find a new way to say something so it feels fresh and like exciting. But other songs, you just want to say what you mean. And I think that
Yeah.
one's just, it's about what it's about. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I could go on, and I'm not going to bore the audience with me just yammering about lyrics for however long we're on. But I'm always excited about good lyrics. I just am. It's the way I've always been. Um, Now, it did say you toured the United States, in was it 2019? Is that when
Yeah.
you had your last tour here? Well, tell me about the tour experience. I do like to ask musicians about that. How do you like touring? What's the difference between touring here in the U.S. and in New Zealand or in Europe and other parts of the world? Do you have any interesting stories from a tour?
Oh, I mean, I love touring in America. I just think it's such an epic country. Like, we were lucky enough to do a big loop around the country. So we really got to see the full spectrum of the environments, like the Rocky Mountains, the
Oh
redwood
wow,
forests, the um, Joshua Tree, for like the desert with the flowers in bloom. So
Right.
I just was, blown away by the landscapes, and everyone's so friendly, which I really loved. I think for us, we didn't really expect to go over there to make money. It was more of a way of playing to the people who've been listening to us for a long time. So we had some, fans who had been listening for probably 8 years or something, right from the beginning.
Right.
Who came along to the shows, and that was super special to meet those people, in person. I'm trying to think if there's any. We played South by Southwest, which was quite an experience. Just being in a festival that's that big and crazy.
Well, you've definitely gained a new fan in me for sure. And if you ever come back to this side of the world, I will definitely go see you because I think you guys are awesome. It does say that you opening acts for Lord. What tour was that? I'm kind of curious about that.
That was one of her New Zealand tours. I just actually went and saw her again on her most recent tour, and she's put together such a good show. Like she nailed the harmonies on this latest album and tour, which I loved. And she's also a lyricist who really thinks
Right.
about her words, I think. But yeah, we played with her in Christchurch in New Zealand, which was really nice because we'd actually that was off the back of a European tour, so we just got back and then got to play
So
with her.
You were still fresh. Yeah, you're still in tour mode.
Yeah, totally. So it was quite a nice way to kind of end the tour, and it was just really special to be asked by her, really. So yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. My daughter, ironically, her name is Brooke as well, spelled the same way. So she kind of turned me on to Lord years ago. So Lord's a great artist too, and she's lyrically strong, like I wrote here, as you are. What are some of the obstacles you've had coming up as a musician? What are some of the things you've had to overcome to get to where you are? I'm always interested in the struggle a little bit. What are some of the boundaries you had to break through?
Being a musician is definitely a struggle, but I enjoy it. Like, I think you have to have this level of determination and also resilience. I think resilience is probably the most important, one of the important things, like outside of being a creative person, because there's so many opportunities and setbacks and different things, and making money is definitely a challenge, especially when you're living in a small country that's quite far away from everywhere else. So to get to America is an extremely expensive endeavor. So, or even to Europe. So we have to be kind of creative in how we sustain ourselves as musicians. But yeah, one of the good things in New Zealand is we have this amazing music community. Everyone kind of knows each other and helps each other out, and we all talk about, how things are going and what's hard and all of that. So I think that's like a big lifeline for a lot of us, is just having a really supportive music community here. But yeah, I think the challenges are probably similar for everyone. Like, the media landscape is shrinking and harder to, and there's so much music, and so actually making your music accessible and making people aware of your music is probably one of the struggles. Like, how do people find out about the music you create? That can be a challenge, I think.
Yeah, well, that's definitely a challenge as a small town author.
Yeah.
I'm self-published, so I'm not backed by a big publisher or anything like that. I do have a pretty good local fan base, but I kind of, or reader base. I won't call them fans or readers. But yeah, I kind of get where you're coming from a little bit in that aspect. And from my perspective, I'm 54 years old, so I've seen the difference. The way musicians make money, like transitioning from the 80s and 90s into the 2000s and the internet age. It seems to me, and you can correct me if I'm misstating anything, but it seems to me it was a little easier back in the 80s and 90s when they were selling physical media and they had product that they could put out there, and then they could support their the albums with a tour. But now everything's digital, Spotify download. I'm not sure how you guys make money other than touring, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, for us, touring isn't necessarily the way we make money either, because we're not a band who go out and drink lots of alcohol too.
R-
So, which is, kind of key to that the touring industry for that to really work, I think, because it's just a different experience, and the cost of touring is really high for a 5-piece band from New Zealand going anywhere.
yeah,
So, our biggest thing has actually been like publishing, so getting songs and film and TV has been really helpful. And streaming hasn't been so bad for us, but it's very much out of our control as to how well that goes as well, because playlisting is a huge part of that.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and now I've forgotten what your question was, but yeah.
Well, it was me really making more of a statement of way from my perspective of how touring musicians
Oh,
and
yeah,
musicians in general have changed the way
yeah,
they.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't really know what it was like in the 90s, but I feel like there would have been less musicians touring and doing stuff, and therefore there was more market for each of them, whereas now everyone could do what they like, because
right.
recording is so accessible. So maybe it's just harder to kind of cut through. Yeah, but for sure it can be hard to make money through selling things. But we, on our US tour, we sold tea towels. I don't know, I think you call them dish towels or dishcloths or something.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
We call them tea towels over here, and they were really popular. So I feel like you almost have to be more than just a musician. You're like a clothing label or something else as well. You're selling some other kind of merch.
Well, that no,
Um,
you're absolutely right. Even in my little small niche, I have T-shirts available with my Valley Boy Publications logo. Yeah, you got to have the extra stuff. Like today, I had hand delivered 3 T-shirts and a book. One lady didn't even want a book; she just wanted the T-shirt. So I was like, I don't want the book; I want the T-shirt. And I was like, okay.
oh, that's cool. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so you know what it's like. But yeah, we just have to do all these different things. Like you have a podcast. I actually teach at a university, and I get to just teach music to
Oh, that's
um,
awesome.
young, excited people for like 20 hours a week or something, which, is perfect really for me because I get really inspired by them. So yeah, we have day jobs. I think that's the other thing we do, or we produce for other people, or so it's never just the band. It's like the band, my solo
Right.
project, me playing in another band as a session musician, you know, me teaching at a university. These are all the things I do. They're all in the music world, but and they all feed into each other. But it's not just one thing. Yeah.
Right. Well, you did talk about, and I'm going to segue into this, and I'm maybe losing a little of the connection here. And if so, I'll pause it and we can restart.
Awesome.
But I I am going to segue into. You did mention you do had some music in television, movies, and I did make a couple of notes here. So, how did you get music in the Vampire Diaries and Never Have I Ever? That sounded pretty interesting to me.
Oh yeah. I mean, we don't have too much to do with it. We just luckily have a great publisher um, who started out in New Zealand as native tongue. Then they moved to Australia, and then now they're called Concord. So they've joined up with another larger publisher. But yeah, they pitch songs from artists to playlists, not to playlists, to like film and TV people. Um, and yeah, we've just so happened to get some placements a couple of times in Vampire Diaries, and yeah, a few other places. We've been in at least 2 different vampire related um, TV shows, which I think is pretty cool. We must
That
have the
is
right
pretty cool.
sound. Yeah. So
So being a horror author, that is cool to me. That's pretty cool.
yeah, I guess
Um,
it's haunting or something. So just it suits.
Well, I'm going to jump around again. There was something else I noticed today when I watched. And your latest album that I know of is the Overflow. Is that correct? Have you had
Yeah,
anything
that's
out
what I
since then?
said. No.
Okay. Well, that was released in 2021. So you guys, I downloaded it. Like I said, I'm an old guy, so I downloaded it off iTunes. But you guys go check it out. It's called The Overflow. Came out 2021. If you want to be an old guy like me and download it, you can do that. Or they actually have, I believe you have the vinyl and some physical merch available on your website.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Okay, so you can go there and buy it, which I plan on doing in the near future. Um, but anyway, I'm saying all that to say this. I watched the Overflow video today, and one thing stuck out to me, and I'm sure there was some sort of symbolism there, but what was the significance of all the yellow in the video? Why was that the primary color?
Yeah, I mean, we made that video on a shoestring budget, but it was quite fun to make. It was basically symbolizing um, anxiety, the video, but sort of hope and anxiety. So the yellow is all the like brightness and the joy and hope, and then there's all these precarious objects throughout the video, like um, a candle beneath a
Yeah,
balloon and things perched precariously on edges of tables. And
yeah,
yeah, so I guess we just wanted to do this really optimistic video about anxiety and panic attacks.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that stuck out. That stuck out to me. I was like, this is full of yellow. It's yellow and white. Those were the
Yeah,
primary colors.
it was really fun. I mean, I didn't have much time. I ran around Wellington City and I just noticed all of these yellow things. I was like, you know what? That really just suits how I feel about this song, which is that I've created this really optimistic take on something that people find quite stressful. So, yeah, so I just went and found all these great items and made this
Okay.
really nice, vibrant space.
Well, that answers my curiosity question. So, uh, this is a question I ask most musicians, and I certainly asked this of Jen last year. Um, Living or dead, what artist would you love to collaborate with? Is there someone out there you would love to work with right now, or is there someone in the past that maybe isn't with us anymore that you would have loved to have worked with, written a song with, played with? Just I'm just curious about that.
Oh, that's such a hard question.
Yeah, that's what she said too.
So, I mean, there's so many people who I'd love to have met and written music with. That's so hard. Um, I mean, my mind did go first to Leonard Cohen because he is such a great lyric writer um, and poet. I think I would go with someone like that. Or actually, I would like because I watched the Beatles documentary. If I could choose four people, I would just like to be in the room with the Beatles when they write because they're amazing how they write together. Yeah.
Yeah, I do agree. And I was speaking to a friend recently, and he said, I remember the day John Lennon died. I don't know if you were even born then. Uh,
Don't think so.
yeah, you. I was here, but it's one of those things. Everyone remembers where they were when John Lennon died, and the world lost such a great,
Mm,
great songwriter and musician. And what was robbed of us was what was coming.
yeah,
We had what he created with and without the Beatles,
yeah,
but he had so much left in him, so much.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I found that documentary to be really inspiring. Just seeing the creativity that they all had at their fingertips and their like intuitive way of working together and
Yeah.
alone. Yeah.
Well, how many of them are still surviving? It's just Paul, right? And is he the only one? Is George Harrison? I can't remember.
I don't know either. I'm not very up to play with where people get.
Yeah, I can't remember. That's just part of being old for me. Oh my goodness. Now, I see that you performed at SXSW. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, South by Southwest. That was in 2019. Of course, it wasn't the best timing because then our plan was to come back to America in
Right.
2020, but then New Zealand went into the lockdown and
The
everyone got,
COVID. Yep.
COVID and stuff. So, yeah, it was, I guess, just a way of sharing our music, and we were hoping to get, maybe a booking agent or just meet we got to meet our US label, which was really cool. Yeah, so that's kind of what it was like. I saw some amazing other artists play whose names have escaped me now. But it is such a fantastic festival. It's just like a melting pot of everything new, every musical genre you can think of that's happening now around the world. You can go there and just see something
Just
you've never
see
seen
something
before.
different.
Yeah,
That's
and
all.
it's just super. It's a super cool experience. So yeah, I was watching all my friends who went this year. I was watching all their like Instagram stories and feeling a
Right.
little bit like, oh, I wish I was over there. They were having the best time. So yeah.
Well, there's another note that just hit me over my head that I didn't pick it up when I went through these notes earlier, and I should have because I'm a writer. You played in a castle for a fan's wedding?
Oh yeah.
What's the story behind that? You played in a freaking castle. That's pretty
Yeah.
awesome.
I mean that was cool. Well, so it's a bit of a long story, but the
That's all right.
first
I got
time
time.
so the first time we went to Europe, um, John, who plays guitar in French for Rabbits, he loves surfing, and he was like, "I'll come on tour if I can go surfing." So we went on tour, and then stayed for 6 weeks in Ericeira in Portugal at the surf camp where we were like working a little bit to so we could stay for free.
Right.
We met all sorts of amazing people, including um, a lovely man who ended up booking our shows in the UK. But we also met this couple who were from Switzerland. Um, and then after we stayed there, we ended up playing a show at their house. And then we went back to New Zealand. But they happened to do like cassette tape releases, and decided to release some of our music on cassette. And then we were going back to Europe for another tour, and they were like, "Oh, this lines up with our wedding," and they asked if we could come and play. So we, in 2016, we went went back over and had to. We actually popped a tire on the way to the wedding, which was quite disastrous in a way. So we had to carry all our instruments up this cobbled pathway to
No
this.
spare? No spare tire?
It was just before the wedding, so we
Oh,
couldn't fix
okay.
it. So I don't think there was a spare tire,
Okay.
which is very confusing. But anyway, um, so we played in this little chapel first on top of this hill, and they had one of those people with the long horns where they play across the mountains in the Alps to the cows.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so we played in this beautiful little chapel, and then went back and stayed in this sort of castle um, where they had dinner, and we played music around the dinner table, and then they let off like little um, like candle balloon things at night time. It was just all very surreal and beautiful, and they're wonderful people. So yeah, it was lovely to be able to play for them, but also to experience this, Swiss wedding was quite surreal as well.
Yeah, that sounds amazing to me to actually play in a castle. When I think of castles, I'm thinking of the old, like Transylvania and the
Yeah,
vampires and that kind of
totally.
thing.
I mean, it had like the stone walls and yeah, candles, and it was just, it was very nice. It was quite a cool experience.
Yeah, well, I'll bet it was. I'd love to visit a castle one day. That sounds pretty fun. So, Brooke, what are you working on now? Is there anything you're working on now? Are you guys trying to put something together, or you kind of in chill mode right now?
I'm never really in chill mode. I find that quite difficult. Um, I've been working on lots of other people's projects at the moment, which is fun, like as a producer and also playing synthesizer in a band called Anthony Tonnon, who's another great New Zealand lyricist and writer.
And what was the name of that band again?
Anthony Tonnon. He's a singer from Wanganui. Yeah, so I've been doing that, but I've also kind of got a collection of solo songs, some of which I wrote in America on that same trip I wrote with Mark. And yeah, we're also working on a few songs for a tour with a string quartet, which is happening in September with the band. So I'm very excited about that, but also quite apprehensive because I need to write lots of string parts, and I'm trying to finish some new songs for it, which I'm working on, but they're very intricate. I got really inspired again by Joanna Newsom recently, and
Okay.
I think from watching that Beatles documentary, like very inspired by and Madison Cunningham, like I think I've been getting bored with like everything that's in the same key, and I've got really excited about key changes and chord change, like just moving in and out of keys and getting it more into more complexity, I guess. So yeah, I think that whatever the next thing is going to be a little bit more complicated. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's good. You're stretching out and you're kind of broadening your horizons a little bit. But from what I've heard, to me, lyrics can be complex and simple at the same time.
Mm.
Um, and it's just the way you put them together. I just wish I could be in your brain just for a few minutes to see how it clicks, because the words you put together are they are art. And I'm not just blowing smoke. If I didn't like the music, I wouldn't even be talking about it, but it's
Oh,
amazing.
thank you. Yeah, no, I just love lyric writing, and I think for me, I'm trying to, I get sort of a feeling in my chest when I capture the emotion I'm trying to get to. And if I don't get that kind of like humming feeling, then I'm
Right.
not there. So, yeah, I'm always kind of chasing that feeling, whatever that feeling is. I don't know how to describe it. So,
Well, yeah, I know I know what you're talking about, because as a writer, sometimes when I'm especially at the end of the book, like of my first draft, when I get to the last paragraph and I type the end, I feel something just come over me, and it's
yeah,
like it's a wave,
hmm,
and it's a wave of emotion is what it is.
yeah, yeah,
And most of the times it's a good wave.
yeah.
There's every once in a while it's a not so good wave.
Mhm.
But yeah, I kind of get how you feel, and that's exactly how I felt when I listened to The Outsider for the first time. So I don't know how many other people it affected that way. And like I said, I'm not necessarily an introvert, but that song, even though it's geared maybe toward the introvert, it still struck a chord in me because it made me look at someone from another perspective,
Yeah,
you
and I
know?
think, as well as being about perhaps being an introvert, and it is really about being an outsider. It is about like what it is to see things from a different perspective, or um, all of those. There's so many emotions that go into a song and I think that's the beauty of a song is you can kind of, and why I sometimes don't want to over explain a song because
Right.
they're complicated tangles of feelings, so people can draw from it
Well,
something
that's
that's
it.
probably truthful.
Yeah, that's the other thing though about songwriting is, for me especially, is the listener can have their own interpretation, and it can be what they need it to be.
Exactly, yeah. So sometimes I'm fearful if I explain perhaps one perspective, it's it's it encompasses so many other perspectives as well. Like as a songwriter, often it's sort of a stream of consciousness thing as well. So um, little bits of stories from different places come together to create this whole, and it's just so much more multifaceted That's the
Oh,
solution. I can't even say the word than
oh,
than just what I can explain in a paragraph or
no,
yeah.
absolutely. I agree 1,000% because your perspective of the song you've written, you're thinking of it in the way that you're thinking of it, but your listener, whoever they may be, they may have a completely different take, and it's not wrong. It fits their
Yeah,
view.
yeah. But
So
even for me, like a song has many many meanings. It's never
yeah,
one thing, you know. I think.
well,
Yeah.
you're very good at it, and I am super impressed. And I'm a French for Rabbits fan now, and I'm gonna shout it to the moon and tell everyone that I know about French for Rabbits.
That's
Um,
yeah. Thank
because
you.
I did something, something similar happened to me with a Jen song, and I don't know how many Jen songs you know of, but she has a song out, and if you haven't heard it, go back and listen to it whenever you have time. It's called "Nothing to No One,"
Okay,
and
yeah,
yeah, and I talked about that on the podcast, and that's probably in my top two songs of all time because of the lyrics. Now, it
cool.
does it does have a cool hook, but there's certain lyrics in that song that just they pound me in the chest every time I hear it, and I've told her that, and
Yeah,
it's a great song, and I don't even really want to share the lyrics with you. I want you to go listen to it, and
yeah,
maybe on
okay.
the side tell me how you feel about it because yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
I
great
mean,
song.
she's amazing and got such a emotion to her voice and power to how she sings, which is really really awesome. So she's actually signed to the same publisher as us, so has
Oh, that's
probably also
great.
had lots of stuff on various films and
Well, maybe
things.
you guys can work together. That would be awesome.
Oh my gosh, I mean that would be amazing. I'd love to one day. I know she's been over here on tour, so
She was just there, yeah. I don't know if she's wrapped up, but she was down to the last date. So she may have already done the last date, but yeah, it seemed like she was having sold out shows all over the place. I would have loved to come to New Zealand and saw a couple of shows, but I'm not in the position where I could do that. But
yeah.
every chance I get in the U.S. when she goes somewhere, I'll take a flight across the country to go see her. So
Ah, you're a great
yeah,
fan. That's really cool.
oh yeah, I'm probably too much of a fan. But, no, I told her she could sing the dictionary, and I'm gonna listen to it, so
Oh,
but yeah, but anyway, I digress. I don't wanna get on a gin tangent. Oh, man. Alright, so you've talked about what you have coming up, and what you're working on now. Where can folks find your music if they wanna purchase music or download music? Where can they find French for Rabbits?
I guess the best place is just our website, which is what is our website? It's French for Rabbit
FrenchForRabbits.com.
.com. Okay, yeah, I was like,
Yep.
is it .com or is it .co.nz? But yeah, .com.
You know
And
what? I'll check that out while we're sitting here,
I'm
but I
pretty
think
sure
it's
it must be.
.com,
Yeah. And from there you can go to like our
and it
Bandcamp.
is.
Oh, good. Yeah. And I feel like our YouTube is good as well because we've made lots of videos, which um, I love visuals as well as music. So if
Well, I'm
people want
glad you mentioned that because I was gonna segue into that at some point. W what's your favorite video that you guys have made to date, and what do you like about making music videos? I love the stories, I love the visual representations, but, what what's your take? Why do you like making music videos, and what's your favorite that you've made?
I mean, I love music videos because I'm a really visual person anyway, and um, I just feel like it's in the same world. Like I've always worked with similar, like I've had a few collaborators, but people I've worked with for a long time. So I've always chosen to work with them because they have a aesthetic or a knowledge around something that I really admire. So Misma has made lots of our videos, and Martin Sagadin, both really amazing New Zealand artists. Yeah, so I just feel like they help tell the story in another way. And yeah, I've got a couple of favorites. I think
Okay.
The Outsider is for sure one of the ones where I feel most proud of what we created. Like
Now, is that you in the video in the veil
it is
covered?
most of the time. Yes, I'm dressed as a ghost. Um, Most of the time, except I realized I'm not that great at a cyclist. And so for the bicycle scenes, it's actually Martin who directed the video, riding the bicycle. They're a much better cyclist than me. Also, Martin is much taller than me, but they, yeah, you couldn't tell under the sheet.
Yeah, sitting on the bike. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, so it's quite funny that we're both in the video. It's the same ghost. But yeah, I just feel like I think the shots are really beautiful. The cinematography works really well, like in the street. And, yeah, so that one was really cool. And I think one of our earliest ones, which was actually for Goat. So the two songs you mentioned, I love that video as well. We went out to this quite remote area and filmed there. Tied all these ribbons in this tree on this farm, and the farmer allowed us to do it so long as we took down all of the ribbons after
You
we filmed.
finished.
Yeah, so that one's quite a mystical journey through a New Zealand landscape. So if anyone wants to see some New Zealand landscape, that's a good one to watch.
So they can find your YouTube channel, French for Rabbits, and all of their videos are available there to watch. And I think maybe I've watched all of them. I don't know if I've seen every single one of them, but I went on a French for Rabbits video extravaganza over the last couple weeks because I knew I was going to be talking to you. And Goat is one that did stick out in my head, and that's the one I said was lyrically excellent. Those were my words when
Yeah.
I watched it.
Yeah, no, I like that one. There's also a live one of 3 songs from the new album, which I really like as well. Which I think,
I saw that. Where was that filmed? The Outsider opened it.
Yeah, so that was filmed at the Vogelmorn Bowling Club, which is just down the road from my house, and it's just this very quintessentially New Zealand old kind of hall space. With like a little bar down the end. And
yeah, that was a cool video too. I watched that last week. Yeah, and you guys played 3 songs, and I remember you opened with The Outsider. I can't remember what the other 2 were off the top of my head.
We played Money or the Bag, which is
That's
one
right.
of my personal favorites, which I also wrote in America, but it's actually inspired by a New Zealand TV show, like a really old school like game show, I guess, where people either could choose the money or the bag. The bag could be anything. It could have been like a new vacuum cleaner, or
It's kind of like our Let's Make a Deal back in the day.
Yeah,
So we had the guy
probably.
with the so you could either choose a prize
Yeah,
guaranteed,
yeah,
or you could choose what's behind this curtain, and it could be a bag of coal or it could be a new car.
yeah, very similar. So it was like you can have $250 or the bag. And I realized after I wrote that one that people outside of New Zealand wouldn't potentially know that kind of phrase, which is so, something people in New Zealand would know because the TV show ran for like 50 years. So yeah, kind of a funny one, but it really described the dilemma of the song.
Yeah, you could make the US version. Let's Make a Deal. People would remember that maybe. Maybe the older people. I don't think they have
Yeah.
that show anymore.
No. I mean, it was gone by the time I was like 6 or something, but I just remember as a child. Yeah.
And I have a couple of more songs that I'd like for you to talk about a little bit before we end the podcast.
Yeah.
So I want you to talk about Claim by the Sea. I love that song too. That one kind of sticks in your head. It's a little, what is it? What's the word I'm looking for? An earworm. That one's kind of an earworm for me. I love that song. What went into making Claim by the Sea?
Well, that was literally the first song I wrote for French for Rabbits. And I remember writing it. I was sitting on my bed in New Brighton in a house which is now knocked down because of the earthquakes. And yeah, kind of wrote it not really knowing exactly what it was about, because sometimes songs come to you without that you don't really know what you're yet talking about when you're writing them.
Right.
But yeah, it became clear. It is about climate change, and I was thinking about these areas near Christchurch where there's these lovely old batches, which is like a holiday home. I think that's what you
Right.
call them. Yeah, but little, cute little ones
Right.
along the waterfront, and some of them were getting washed away by the sea. And I just, found that a really kind of interesting concept, and the idea of the lyric is claimed by the sea and it's always going to be claimed by the sea,
Yeah.
which is this like rotating sentence. And I
Yeah.
like
And
the
that's what
idea.
gets stuck. Yeah.
Yeah, and it reminds me of the tide, it goes in and out. And so that sentence functions in the way the tide functions,
Oh,
and
I'd never thought of it that way. Ah,
nature.
nice.
Yeah, so I think that's a really the line kind of speaks to the image and the
Yeah. Wow. Okay. You made me think of it a different way. That's pretty cool. Um, and the other song that stuck out, I had a list of 5 or 6 that really stuck out that I did want to ask you about. So this is probably the last one that I'm going to ask you about. Nothing in My Hands. How did that generate? That's another one that stuck out to me.
Yeah, that's my favorite one to play with the band. It's really fun to play. I mean, what is that song about? It's quite grim. Again, like I come back to climate change a lot, I think,
Right.
in my writing. Like Claim by the Sea is the first song, and this one's one near, like, this is 10 years on and I'm still writing about it. But that one started as like a demo I made on the computer with like electronic instruments, and then I brought it to the band. But yeah, it's very much about the end of the world and the nostalgia of like this moment we live in, and like thinking of it as like a last dance at a ball or something.
Oh,
So yeah, that's what that one is about. It's quite depressing, but it's also beautiful.
it is
Yeah.
beautiful. It is a beautiful song. Um, wow, you've given me a couple of things to think about as an author. I may need your permission to use that witch's face in the piano.
Oh yeah,
There may
totally.
be a story there.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely like a moment as a child. I was like, if it was a dark day and the piano was closed, I'd be like, oh, there's the witch on the piano. And then I'd quickly run in and open up the thing. It's really cool, but also creepy.
Well,
Yes, you're welcome, my witch.
I, I may write a short story around that concept. I don't know, I'll look at it. Maybe it'll turn into a full novel, but I do write short stories for a weekly podcast. I don't
Oh, awesome.
write them every week. There's a bunch of authors that do, but it's called Weekly Spooky. If you're
Oh, that sounds
interested, you can go
great.
check it out.
I
Uh,
love podcast stories.
well, Weekly Spooky is one that's produced by my good friend. He's a movie director and producer and podcast host and all kinds of stuff. He does all kinds of things. His
Oh,
name is
awesome.
Henrik Kuto. And if you just go to weeklyspooky.com, you can find links there. But yeah, it,
Awesome.
that may be a good candidate for a short story.
Oh,
And
well,
if I
let me
really
know.
get
Let me
into
know
it,
if you do it. Yeah.
it may turn into a novel. Sometimes I really love that idea. I'm glad I talked to you. That's awesome. That you made my
That,
face just ah. It's amazing. All right. Well, is there anything else you want to put out there? We put out your website so people know where they can find French for Rabbit. So I'm going to put all the links below. So guys, go listen to Brooke Singer and her amazing group French for Rabbits. There's something to hear for sure, and I'm glad that Mark pointed me in your direction because, yeah, you got another fan. For as long as you're making music, I'll be a fan. So I'll check out
um,
what you got when it comes out, and I'll definitely go back and I'm a vinyl collector, so I'll
hmm,
probably pick up some of your vinyl if it's available still. So I'll
yeah.
bring
Oh,
some
thank
of
you
that
so much.
home.
Yeah,
But
well, we've still got a few. We've got some pink ones that are like clear with pink swirls. It's very pretty.
ooh, yeah, I think I
Yeah.
like that. Let me check that out.
Yeah.
I'll pick that up after the show. But yeah, I want to leave you with the last word. If there's anything else you want to tell the audience, anything you want to share in closing, I will be quiet. I tend to ramble.
Oh, I mean, thank you so much for having me. It's always fun to talk about lyrics and music because I'm just a total nerd when it comes to that stuff. It's my favorite thing. So thanks for the opportunity. And yeah, I hope people enjoy our music if they hear it. And yeah, I hope they enjoy this first episode that we've done together. So
Yeah, I think we did a great job. We did a good job together. So I thought that was awesome. You were a great guest. I appreciate you coming on. Brooke Singer's the first guest on Backstage 421. I'm Charles Campbell. You can find me at valleyboypublications.com. All my links are there. Started a brand new Facebook page for Backstage 421, so you can like us there. Started a new YouTube channel for Backstage 421. You can find my horror podcast at Horror 421, the podcast. And yeah, that's all I got out there. And Brooke, thank you. Oh my goodness. Look at is it a boy or a girl?
this is Heidi, my puppy. She's come to say hi.
Heidi. I'm going to show you my beagle after we hang up. I've got my
Oh,
beagle.
yeah.
He's sitting right over here in the bed. But I'll grab him in just a second. But anyway, thank you guys for listening to the first episode. And we'll see you again on the next episode of Backstage 421, the Musicians Only podcast. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Backstage 421, the Musicians Only podcast. Be sure to tune in for the next episode. Please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Listener support links can be found below. Thank you for your support.